And welcome back to Horror Queers. Oh wait, this isn't a regular episode. We've opened the Patreon vaults, and I'm Joe.
Again! Yes!
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because this is October, and we're still in the thick of the Halloween trilogy, so why not revisit last year's Halloween Kills, Trace?
Yeah, that sounds like something I want to do. I'm sorry. I would love to revisit our episode. I do not want to revisit this movie because I have watched it twice since we watched it the first time, and I like it even less. Spoiler alert.
No. I watched it for our episode, which I would like to say I think we do a fair job of balancing the things that are working, however small they are, and then the things that are not. But I mean, this movie was a hill that people fucking died on last year.
Yeah, if I recall, we were very much like why are people up in arms about this?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of silly stuff. Like, I remember how we all jumped on that Evil Dies Tonight bandwagon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we ended up having a bit of a chat about this and the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre on one of our Horror Queers Hangout videos on YouTube, because it felt like people were just really defensive and or irrationally angry about franchise films this year.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing. People have such close ties to these franchises; they're long running, and so we're kind of in this era where people are like, "Oh, if you don't like this movie, or if you really go to town like hating on this movie, then you are insulting me." I feel like that's what we're seeing a lot of nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a surprise to me because I've just never had the relationship to Halloween that I think a lot of other horror film fans do. So, you know, we've talked at length about the different films that we like in the franchise. We've done an audio commentary on Halloween H2O on the Patreon. And the reality is, for me, this franchise is just such a mixed bag. I always go into it open-minded and hoping for something exciting, but it is a bit of a crapshoot, and sadly, David Gordon Green is just not my favorite when it comes to this particular property.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going to hear this in the episode, but this is a movie that retroactively made me like Halloween 2018 even less.
Oof.
But that's all I'll say about it. I mean, look, so on that note, go in and enjoy the episode.
I mean, here's the thing. We don't do this in a short fashion. Like, this is a full-length episode, folks, so you are going to hear 2 hours of us walking through this. So, yeah, I'm interested to see if people's anger has subsided a little bit, where maybe we have some perspective of a year later. But I'd be curious to hear folks who didn't hear this on Patreon last year. What are your thoughts? Are you liking the film more? Are you less excited for Halloween Ends, aka the one that we're going to be covering on Patreon this month? I don't know.
But on that note, though, I mean, yeah, so this is a Patreon episode. If you don't know what it is because you stopped listening to our episodes before we, close out, I guess. This is a taste of what you will get when you subscribe to our Patreon. So if you want to go check it out, I mean, go to patreon.com/horrorqueers. You'll see a bunch of different tiers. You can pick which one you want to join. But I mean, if you join our highest tier, we have over 200 hours of bonus content that you can get for just $10.
Yeah, and we have covered this. As I said, we've covered H2O. So we have a lot of content if you are interested in Halloween, other mainstream horror franchises, and so on. But Trace, why don't you give these folks a taster of what they would get if they signed up this month?
Yeah, so if you sign up for the Patreon this month, on top of course, getting everything we've covered already, we will have episodes on the adaptation of Grady Hendrix's My Best Friend's Exorcism, the spooky Disney sequel, Hocus Pocus 2, the reboot of Clive Barker's Hellraiser, as Joe said, an episode on Halloween Ends, and to celebrate its 20th anniversary, an audio commentary, which is, you watch the movie with me and Joe in real time on Gore Verbinski's The Ring.
Ooh, yes.
If you want to hear me scream like a little girl when they open that fucking closet for Amber Cameron's corpse.
Love it. Can't wait.
But yeah, so again, go to our Patreon. We have lots of good shit there. Go support us. It's really fun. And if you can't, that's okay. Go leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because that is a good way to do it if you can't or don't want to do the Patreon.
Yeah, but Trace, since this is a Patreon exclusive, we won't be talking about where we're going next week. So I guess we should probably let listeners know where we're headed for Episode 200.
Oh boy, y'all. It is almost 4 years in the making. We're turning 200.
Yeah. So, folks, we decided to pick a film that Trace and I are in agreement on. This is a 5-star movie, 0 flaws, nothing but gush. Everybody get ready. We're going to be talking about Karyn Kusama's The Invitation.
Yes, and again, if you are new to the genre or you're unfamiliar, please make sure you are watching the 2015 Invitation, not the one that came out this year with Natalie Emmanuel.
Yeah, we have not covered that film. Maybe never will, but no, stick with the 2015 one. It's a guaranteed good time.
So good. We have, nothing but nice things to say, but we're not talking about that right now. We're going to talk about Halloween Kills. So, I guess without further ado, we can go into the episode, y'all. Enjoy.
Sheriff, you're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking Johns both big and little. We're talking Judy fucking Greer. And we're talking America's favorite new drinking game, Evil Dies Tonight. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we're talking Gotcha again.
The Redux.
Oh my god.
I mean, that's basically what this movie is, right?
It is. That is exactly what it is. And everyone, of course, if you don't know the movie we are talking about David Gordon Green's Halloween Kills. And kills, there are aplenty in this movie.
Indeed. I think it's one of the things that people are praising the film for, right? It's got the gore and the action and the creative deaths that we're looking for.
Yes. No, it does have those things. And I would argue it doesn't have much else.
Right.
Or it seems to think it does have a lot of things that it's trying to do, but for me, it doesn't succeed at pretty much any of them. So, just getting this out of the way right away, y'all, I did not care for this movie. I did not like this movie, and I'm actually very sad about this movie.
Well, Trace, I think you're missing the overall thought that this film is about grief and it's about trauma and it's about this town healing. Yeah, folks, I'm being obviously a little facetious because I too, unfortunately, did not overly care for this film. But you know what? We're going to unpack it. We're going to try to be, I don't know, I don't want to say responsible, but we're going to try to be fair to where the film is succeeding because there are obviously people who quite like this movie.
Yes, there are. And, okay, I mean, if you are a fan who has been online, specifically on Twitter, actually, no, anywhere, any social media, because I've seen it on Facebook, too, this movie has divided people. Like, I mean, I have seen people going at each other's throats, horror fans going at each other's throats for liking or not liking this movie. And obviously, you and I can say this, it is okay to not like a movie. It's okay to like a movie, but
absolutely
from both sides of this conversation. And again, y'all, we are recording this the Monday after Halloween Kills comes out. So, I mean, like, it's fresh in our minds.
It's fresh everywhere.
It's fresh everywhere. But it seems to be, okay, the side that doesn't like it. Oh, if you liked this movie, you have you're not a true fan, or you should expect more from this franchise. And blah, blah, blah. And then from the other side, it's, oh, if I like this movie, if you didn't like it, like, what were you expecting? It was just a dumb fun slasher, blah, 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 blah. But it's becoming like personal attacks like people are offended when people are disagreeing with their opinion on this movie. And I'm just like, honestly, I got exhausted just looking at this discourse.
Yeah. It definitely seems to have not just riled people's feathers, but also, like, I think what we're seeing is a bit of a repeat of that Malignant phenomenon that we experienced earlier this year, where when something is so easily publicly available, and even though we're not really starved for horror content, it does seem like this was the thing that people were watching. So everybody had an opinion because everybody had seen it, because it was streaming on Peacock, or, there were enough open theaters people could go and see it. So it really not only dominated the discourse, but it's a major franchise. the biggest opening for a slasher 3 years ago. This is the sequel, so anticipation has been riding high. We had to wait an extra year for it. It just seemed like everyone has thoughts about this movie.
Very much so. And I mean, we'll get into the box office run of it later because, I mean, it overperformed expectations, which, I mean, as a horror fan, I'm like, oh, that's great. I think that's awesome.
Sure.
Like, yay, horror is doing well. I just wish it was for a movie that I thought was better. I don't even want to use the word like deserves the money because whatever, like it's a win for horror. Yay. But yeah, we'll talk about fan service. We'll talk about whatever. But I, for me personally, on a basic filmmaking level of screenwriting and especially editing, I think this movie is a failure. And I was angry. I went through like the 5 stages of grief over the weekend. No, because I have a closer relationship to this franchise than you do. But, you know, in our Halloween 2018 episode, we discussed how both of our opinions had kind of like, you know, softened on it a bit. But I still was like, no, but I still like it.
Right.
I hate that this is the second movie in a row now where I'm like, well, maybe the next one's going to fix my problems with this one. Except the problem is, instead of, oh, I have 2 movies to fix my problems with this one movie, I now have 1 movie to fix my plethora of problems with these 2 movies.
Yeah, and you know, you and I had a big conversation, actually a series of conversations in the lead up to this, because we worried that this film was going to fall into the kind of middle entry in a trilogy. Like there's challenges, right?
Yeah.
And you were very adamant that you were worried this was going to be a movie that could not stand on its own. It was going to obviously end on a big old cliffhanger. Everybody knew that part. But the sad reality is that this isn't just a film that acts as the middle part of a trilogy. It's a film that almost doesn't justify its own existence. Like, I spent a lot of this wondering, okay, but does this... it's such a tricky situation. Does some of this need to be here? Or is it that this is just a Blumhouse cash cow and why do 2 movies when you could have 3? Like, that was what kept going through my head.
And that was the original plan, right? Like, they were originally going to do 2 movies when they were first doing this. When McBride and Green and whatever the fuck, Jeff Bradley were writing the first movie, they wanted to do 2 movies back to back. And then they were like, and by they, I'm like, I'm sure Blum said this, hey, do 1, we'll see what people react to, and then we'll use that to write 2 sequels for a cash cow if the first one does well enough.
Yeah.
And I was a defender of the first one because I was like, no, I mean, obviously I know it's a business, people want money, blah, 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 blah.
Sure, we've been here before.
Yeah, but their intentions were in the right place. And with Kills, I don't even necessarily think their intentions are in the wrong place. I do think that they think they're doing something that they're not. But it's also very much a... I mean, our former guest Lindsay Travis put it very, very correctly in her review where she was like, this is a movie that is a series of vignettes of kills that is kind of sort of bookended around this mob groupthink statement. And I'm using statement in quotes because, I mean, the movie flat out says, oh, I'm sorry, wait, I have the line when Charles Cypher's Annie Brackett says, oh, he's turned us all into monsters. Thanks, movie. I got it.
Oh, is that your thesis? Okay. Also, congratulations on putting it in there at about the 70-minute mark.
But I do want to be clear, though, and I mean, I'm sure you agree. Like, obviously, when I'm critiquing this movie, when I'm saying, like, I expected better from this movie, I'm not also saying... if you did like this movie, your standards are low and therefore you're an idiot. That is not at all what I'm saying. Honestly, I'm envious of people that really like this movie, and I wish I was in the same court. Like, I don't want to dislike this movie, and I kind of hate the fact that I do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do think there were some people who went into this actively looking to hate it. It was a little bit difficult to be generous to it if you, like me, were not the biggest fan of 2018. Like, you're kind of coming off a not great taste, and it's like, here, put a little bit more shit into your mouth. And I'll be clear, I didn't hate this movie. I kind of enjoyed watching it, but at the end of the day, I agree with you. I don't think it's a great movie. And part of I said part of my frustration was that this is middle entry in a trilogy, but also I just don't think that they capitalized on a good creative decision. So you said that this is a bit of a failure of storytelling, and I think they kind of put they put the baby into the corner, and it was not the best decision that they could have made because, one of the things that we talked about a lot in our 2018 review was people liked it the best when we were focusing on the 3 generations of Strodes.
Right.
And because of the way we ended that last film, we obviously can't have Jamie Lee Curtis out running around doing knife battles with Michael Myers because she's not in a good spot. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was like, okay, well, the obvious natural thing is to be like, we're going to jump ahead a year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever, and not keep it on the exact same night, because you then automatically have to do what this film does, which is sideline Jamie Lee Curtis, sideline Judy Greer for a certain extent, side check Andy Matichak for a certain regard. So we then have to fill the film with all these other characters. And yeah, I agree, the mob stuff could be interesting, but the film also doesn't want to just focus on the mob stuff. So yeah. Welcome back to vignettes.
Well, and the whole thing with this being the second part of a trilogy, which it was so funny because I saw some people saying, oh, this is the Empire Strikes Back of the Halloween franchise. And I wanted to be
ooh, that is a little generous.
Because Empire Strikes Back, while ending on a massive cliffhanger, can still stand on its own as its own film. I feel like there's like a protective barrier right now around Halloween Kills where I'm like, I don't feel like I can have a full opinion of this movie because it doesn't feel like a complete movie. This does feel like half a movie, and I do think, yeah, maybe the problems I have with it now will be addressed in Halloween Ends, because this movie sure as fuck goes out of its way to address the problems people had with the first movie. Sometimes, like, literally just actually addressing them, having a character address the problems.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we've spent about 10 minutes kind of preemptively addressing some of the issues and concerns that people have. It's always going to be like this when we get a major blockbuster mainstream release for a beloved franchise. And I guess one of the things that I would just encourage people to do is be generous with other people's opinions. If you don't like it, then that's your prerogative and you can own that and maybe unpack it and have conversations. Same thing goes for if you like it, but this is not a movie to die on a hill for, where you say, if anybody disagrees with me, then fuck them to hell.
Yeah, and we've belabored the point, so we'll kind of get into the production, but I do want to say, obviously, yeah, like you said, Joe, people have been waiting for this movie for a very long time, and when it was pushed back, it was like, a knife in the hearts of horror fans everywhere. Like, we wanted to see this movie. They did screen this, apparently. There was a test screening, before the pandemic. And I had talked to a couple people. I won't name any names because I'm pretty sure NDAs were signed. But the recap of the previous version of this film that is not the one we got. And I do want to point out that I knew these facts after having already seen Halloween Kills, so I didn't walk into the movie with these expectations. But
okay.
From what I was told, basically there was a lot more character development and tension between Karen and Laurie. Karen was very clearly the lead from start to finish, and there wasn't so much of a focus on Tommy. There's a lot of tension between Karen and Laurie because Laurie dismisses Ray's death, aka Karen's husband. So she and Karen have a lot of tension throughout the film, and so after that, Karen withholds the truth about Michael surviving, which was a huge focus and core of the film. So when Tommy blurts out that Michael is alive, there's a huge fight between Laurie and Karen. And so, granted, I'm hearing this, secondhand, so I'm just like, I don't know how this played because I didn't see this version of the movie. Mm-hmm. But hearing this, I'm like, okay, it sounds like they made a movie that did address a lot of the legitimate concerns with that first movie, and then scrapped them.
Right. And it's hard when you hear that to think about how much more effective the end of the film would be when, spoilers in case you haven't figured out or haven't listened to the show before, when Karen dies, having spent that much more time with her and having invested even more in the relationship that she has with her mother, which was already fraught from that first film, I think it would have actually paid off a lot better.
Well, and how about this? Because I didn't catch this in the film. So there was also more scenes between Hawkins and Laurie because Hawkins is alive in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, color us shocked.
Did you pick up in the film that he's Karen's father?
What?
Okay.
No.
Okay. So there was a scene in the middle of the movie. It's when Laurie first wakes up and he's there, and they're basically talking, and she apologizes to him and says, "I didn't say anything because I didn't know if it was you. I was such a mess back then." And he mentioned something about how he always had a thing for her, and he kissed her, and he knew she had a thing for Ben Tramer.
Yes.
I was like, whatever, like they're talking about random shit. Apparently, also in this original cut, there was a heavier implication on the fact that Hawkins is Karen's father, and in the original ending, Karen is 100% dead and mangled with her ringing phone falling out of her pocket. Michael picks it up, Laurie hears breathing, has a breakdown, declares, "I'm coming for you, Michael," before walking out and ignoring Hawkins' worried questions. Which I think the intention there is, we're entering ends with a this time it's even more personal mindset.
Right.
But the way this ends, I'm just kind of like, well, I guess maybe they're like trying to like make it looks like she's dead, but she's not really, because I don't know. Or maybe I don't know. Nevertheless, hearing this after I had seen this movie, when I already didn't like the movie, I was kind of like, oh, God damn it.
Oh, shit. That sounds like a movie I would have liked more.
But I'll never know, because again, maybe it was done poorly in that version too, and there was a reason for these cuts. Like, that's entirely possible.
Yeah, we've done so many episodes where we hear about these alternative cuts and they do sound great, but something about them, whether it was a bad studio faith or a botched marketing job or whatever the reason, some of these endings or some of these alternative cuts just may not be good. Like, they may sound better than what we got, but it doesn't actually mean they were better.
100%. But granted, the film we're left with, it makes it look like Jamie Lee Curtis showed up for a day and shot all of her scenes and then grabbed her paycheck and left.
She's a very busy lady. We talked about this.
Anyway, okay. Well, let's go through a brief rundown of how this came to be, because honestly, most of it kind of came out in our Halloween 2018 episode, but...
Go back and listen to that.
Go listen to it. I thought we were very fair to that movie as well, but who knows?
Well, we'll endeavor to do the same for this one.
Yes, we will. So in June 2018, this is before before 2018 Halloween comes out, Danny McBride confirms that he and David Gordon Green had originally intended to pitch 2 films that would be shot back to back. As I said earlier, they decided against that. So a couple months after Halloween comes out in October of 2018, so this is like February of 2019, it's confirmed that Scott Teems was in talks to write the script with Green and McBride. Now, of course, you'll remember there was a third writer on the original film, and his name was Jeff Fradley, so they swapped him out for Mr. Teems, who I did some look into his work. He'd written like 13 episodes of a show called Rectify.
God, you are kidding me.
No? Do you know Rectify very well?
Oh, I'm a huge fucking Rectify fan.
Oh,
like,
well,
massive. It is a great show. It is all about character development.
Oh, well, okay, so maybe that's why they hired him for this movie, but it doesn't shine through on the screen.
It does not show then.
No. It does not. And of course, for Halloween Ends, we're actually swapping out teams for 2 new writers. So we're actually getting 4 writers on Halloween Ends with David Gordon Green and Dan McBride.
Okay.
So basically, in June of 2019, they're like, hey, yeah, we're going to start filming Halloween in September. July of that year, they say, we're not only going to film Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends back to back, but we're also going to release them both in October 2020.
Okay, see, I always called bullshit on that. There is no way you were going to release 2 massive movies back to back. It's called, you're going to do the It Chapter 1, Chapter 2 deal. You're going to keep them a year apart because you're going to make shit tons more money.
But the difference is there, though, It Chapter 2 wasn't filmed back to back. Like, they waited until one made money, which is what obviously happened with Kills here. But yeah, has that ever happened? I think the closest we've ever had to that is like when The Matrix 2 and 3 came out, 7 or 8 months apart?
Yeah, that's probably the closest one because almost everything else is a full year.
Yeah, for sure. So July of that year, again, that they announced it's going to be Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. I remember seeing so much uproar about how stupid the name Halloween Kills was, which at this point I'm like, well, that was the least of my problems. So
yeah, and it kind of does accurately reflect what we get.
Absolutely. Yes, it is not lying to you. You are paying for what you think you're getting. So, Kills began production in September of 2019. They did not film them back to back, like I think was originally going to be planned. So there's that. Andy Matichak has who plays Allison, has a quote where she's like, the intense schedule prevented them from doing it. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stunts in this movie, so that does kind of make sense. Although, as you said, we've seen it before.
Right, exactly. And of course, all 3 films were originally going to take place on the same night. So we were having like a trilogy of these 3 films, all taking place on Halloween 2018. Obviously, that is not the case. COVID I think it was the pandemic. Like, basically, they said, hey, we're not doing them back to back. That's fine. But then the pandemic happened. They pushed back Kills. And now we're getting an ends that is set 4 years later in 2022, post this stuff and post pandemic, which apparently will be a plot point in ends, which,
no.
You know what? Prove me wrong. Like, I don't have faith in that idea, especially given the handling of some things in this film, but I want to be proven wrong. I want it to be something that I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm surprised. That turned out pretty well with this this post-COVID trauma slasher movie.
Yeah. I'll just say, I mean, some of this sounds a little bit like marketing speak, and I know that, somebody reached out to us and said that we should be a bit more careful with the way that we complained about Jamie Lee Curtis's Me Too comments with the first film. This new film, there has been a bit of a meme/clip package of Jamie Lee Curtis just saying the word trauma over and over again, talking about it. And I think some of that, it's probably best for us to maybe just take that step back from the way that people are talking about the movies until we're actually getting the movies, so that we can say, oh, well, maybe COVID is just a blip that gets mentioned at one point, as opposed to a full-blown plot point that, everybody's going to be losing their shit over.
I do agree. And that's something I thought about when thinking about my thoughts on this film, because again, like, they have been on the press train. I mean, you have Curtis talking about how the first one was trauma, blah, 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 blah. But again, like, they're also saying, oh, like, yeah, this is really like a statement on mob mentality and groupthink. And I'm like,
sure,
that is a thing that's in this movie. Whether it's handled well is up to the viewer, I guess.
Right, yeah. And I think that's one of the things that people... Yeah, let's leave it there. Never mind.
Well, no, but I get what you're saying, though, right? Like, should we walk into a movie with the baggage of what we have heard from the filmmakers on the press train?
Yeah, I prefer to always just take the film, like, what am I seeing on the screen? What is it engaging with in terms of dialogue, character motivation, blah, 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 blah.
Right, because again, at the end of the day, it's like we always say, once the art leaves the creator, it is completely subjective, so intent doesn't matter. So whatever they're saying on the press tour technically doesn't really matter when factoring into our opinion of the film. And so yes, I had to do some soul searching and like compartmentalize a lot of that when I was thinking about like what I was going to say with this film.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the film was originally going to be released October 16th, 2020, but in July 2020, it was pushed back because of the COVID pandemic to October 15th, 2021. It premieres at the 78th Venice Film Festival on September 8th of this year, to a mixed reception, we'll say.
Right.
The next day, on September 9th, it was announced that in addition to being released in theaters, the film would also be streamed on paid tiers of Peacock for 60 days. And of course, there was this whole hubbub like, oh, I guess Blumhouse was scared by the bad word of mouth, so they're going to put it on streaming to save box office. I don't think that's true. I don't think that they can just in a day make a streaming deal.
Well, and I think one of the things that people need a better understanding of is that at the end of the day, that was entirely a financial decision, but likely not from the Blumhouse theatrical side. That was probably Peacock saying, we're not getting the uptake that we want on our streaming service. We're going to throw money at the problem, and we're going to lure a big title like Halloween Kills. Because we're seeing HBO Max do the exact same thing. Netflix has been doing it with like gobbling up big name film directors. People need to understand the streaming wars are still happening. This isn't about bad movies or fears of theatrical releases not doing well. This is about streamers being like, we need to gobble up content, throw money at it.
Well, and I mean, granted, like, comparing this to something like Malignant isn't really apt because Malignant isn't like the 12th sequel in a franchise, but
exactly.
It does go to show that because, again, a lot of these HBO Max movies outside of Godzilla vs. Kong from back in March haven't really done the business that people wanted because, I mean, honestly, it seems like everyone and their mom has HBO Max, but no one has Peacock.
No, and that's why Peacock, they put a feather in their fucking cap because they scored this deal. And I think the fact that we ended up with a giant box office regardless is proof that with the right title, you can do both streaming and day-and-date release.
Yeah. But granted, like, it didn't phase this film's box office. And again, for that, I'm like, fucking yeah, like, that's awesome. So this film in one weekend, while it's also streaming on Peacock. And again, like, I mean, we can make fun of people that don't have Peacock or whatever, but like, obviously this is also being pirated all over the world right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But this movie grossed $50.4 million in the United States and Canada, and $5.5 million internationally, for a worldwide total of $55.9 million, when it was originally supposed to gross like 35 to 40. So it overperformed while also having a day and date. That is awesome. I just wish it was for a better movie.
Sure. Yeah. The caveat, the asterisk. Yeah.
I know. And I'll lay off on that because we're about to dive into the whole plot and everything. But, you know, reception on Rotten Tomatoes, we're looking at a 40% based on 162 reviews, average rating of 5.1 out of 10, which honestly, that's kind of about where I'm falling. I think I'm really at the 4 out of 10 / 2 out of 5 rating for this, but like a 5.1 out of 10 seems accurate for me, at least.
And you had to remember that the opinion of the 2018 film has soured a little bit in, you know, the way that you and I have actually become a little more generous towards it. I think there's a lot of people who, in hindsight, they were just so fucking excited for a Halloween 40 years after the fact with Jamie Lee Curtis, 20 years since she had been in that role. Like, obviously, when that first film came out, heightened expectations, people were losing their minds about it. And then we had 3 years to cool our tits, and the sequel comes out. And I think a lot of people carried over some of the negativity from that first film into the new film. So, like, it's not unusual for sequels to see lower ratings, even if the film is better or, like, way worse. Like, the new film often gets punished.
Yes, absolutely. Which... That's just the cycle of a horror sequel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Metacritic, we're looking at a 42 out of 100. Letterboxd, we're looking at a 5.6 out of 10. And CinemaScore audiences gave it a B-. So,
okay.
Say what you... I think it's... I'm loath to use the term crowd pleaser, but this does seem like, I mean, again, if you're wanting to go see like a horror movie with a bunch of killing, like, this is it, and it ends on a cliffhanger that for some people it really works, and when we get into the plot, I will go into why it doesn't work for me.
Right. Yeah, I do think this is a bit of a film that's also critic-proof. Like, I think the audience... I think the audience score really matters more at the end of the day, because part of what we're also experiencing is, once again, this kind of horror circle bubble, right? Like, so we're seeing people fighting about it all the time. I'm sure there were a bunch of people who just said, hey, Blumhouse released a new movie. It's a Halloween film. It's October. Let's go see it. Like, I'm willing to bet that there are far more people who just kind of treated this as a night out, whether it was on the couch or actually in the theaters, and just went and checked it.
Yeah. And again, that's awesome. Yay, horror. Rah, rah, sis, boom, bah.
I can't do the rest of it.
I know. We've been generalizing about this film for so much. So let's get into specifics, Joe. Let's talk about the plot of this movie. Plot is it being in quotes.
Oh my God. I have so much plot, though. We're going to be here all night.
Well, no. Okay, so I will be totally honest. I had drank wine during this screening. And as the movie went on, because I was honestly like, I liked the flashback opening, whatever. I was into it. I was in the opening credits. I loved the opening credits. And then as the movie went on, like, I kept rolling my eyes more. And I guess I was like making audible sighs of discontent, because my husband, like, after we're done, he's like, oh, like, it was very obvious you were not enjoying this movie.
Oh, shit. But you've seen this again, like, right? You watched it a second time?
Yes. No. Yeah. So I watched it the first time on Friday night. Thursday night? No, yeah, Thursday night. And then I watched it again today to just see if my opinion had changed on it. And it didn't. It didn't get better, didn't get worse. I felt the exact same about it.
Okay. I've only seen it the one time, and I was trying to take relatively detailed notes, but I found that I was taking quite a lot of notes, which is usually a sign that I'm trying to kind of stay engaged with the film. So I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do a really detailed plot description for this, as opposed to, oh, I'm getting lost in the film. Oh, I should remember to write something down so I can remember it later. So that was a sign for me it wasn't quite working.
It's because the film bounces around more than we do in a really bad episode of Horror Queers.
Put it on the poster. Bounces around more than a shitty episode of Horror Queers.
That's 100%. I was like, this movie, like, literally, I was like, oh, like, this scene, I'm kind of getting engaged. And then boom, we're cutting to someone else I don't give a shit about.
I will say the introduction of a bunch of new characters and then us killing them off did not endear me to this filmmaking team.
I have things to say about the legacy characters that are reintroduced in this film.
Well, let's get to them. Let's do this.
Okay.
So we open with Cameron. Everyone remember Cameron? He's Allison's shitty boyfriend who in another cut wouldn't have been quite so shitty. He is played by Dylan Arnold.
So...
Okay, we're starting right here? Okay, go.
So, I mean, again, if y'all didn't listen to the episode of 2018, like, go listen to it because we go into this deleted scene from the first film. The only reason they cut that is because that scene ends with him going to jail. So they would have to have a reason at the beginning of this movie to get him out of jail to tell the story they wanted to tell.
Okay.
I'm still a bit flummoxed, though, that we get, his apology in that deleted scene was so much more meaningful and earnest than his, hey, I'm really sorry, Allison, come join the mob in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels like she got a gentle one-evening amnesia and is either very forgiving or has maybe lost her marbles.
I mean, again, despite the fact that 3 years are between the release of these films, I'm really confused as to why everyone thought Laurie was a nut in this movie, in the first movie, aka 2 hours ago, and now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, Laurie, get her!
It's just because we weren't seeing apparently 80% of this town in the first film.
Yeah. They were all getting drunk at Mick's bar for the talent show.
They're at open mic night. God damn it. Okay. All right, so we're still with Cameron. Cameron has discovered that Officer Hawkins, Will Patton, is actually still alive. And then almost immediately, we go into a flashback from 1978. And this is where we see a young Hawkins, who is now played by Thomas Mann. And he and his partner, Pete McCabe, who is played by what the fuck Jim Cummings is doing in this movie. I don't know.
Okay, hey, so everyone was losing their shit for Jim Cummings. I've seen Wolf of Snow Hollow, not my favorite, but is there something else that he's really known for? Like, I'm not saying this to be mean. I was like, oh, that's that guy that wrote, directed, and starred in Wolf of Snow Hollow. But he seems to really have a special place in the hearts of horror fans, so I didn't know what it was.
So Wolf of Snow Hollow does have quite an avid fan base, so I think people put him, like Rob Savage, Josh Rubin, as kind of the new generation of up-and-coming exciting horror directors. I don't think it hurts that people find him very attractive. So it was like, oh, a famous horror director or someone that I recognize who was also Hottie McHottie Pants showing up unexpectedly in this horror film, because I don't think people really knew he was in it.
No. But it's also like, it's a face only horror fans are going to know. Like, my theater didn't whoa, when I was watching it.
Oh, yeah. He is not a known property apart from the people who know Wolf of Snow Hollow.
And listeners, I am aware I'm in the minority Wolf of Snow Hollow. I am aware that a lot of people really like that movie. It just was not for me.
Oh, I fucking hate that movie.
I feel like the longer we podcast together, like the closer our needs and wants from movies are intertwining.
It's very scary to me.
So yeah, here's a 10-minute flashback.
Yeah, basically. So it's them patrolling. We get a little bit of background history about how Haddonfield is very sleepy and nothing really happens apart from that Michael Myers incident from a while back. We are also introduced to young Lonnie Elam, who is played by Tristan Eggerling, who later trips. He's threatened by Michael Myers. IMDb claims that this is a different actor than what we will see in the contemporary scenes and is apparently played by an actor named Aaron Armstrong. Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry. The actor playing young Lonnie?
No, Michael Myers.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I mean, I guess maybe because they're wanting it to be like a younger build, like make sure he walks younger, or like he's in his 20s.
Yeah, it's very odd to me.
And right off the bat, you can disagree with me on what politics you think this movie's trying to do, but and maybe this isn't political, but right off the bat, we're getting, okay, cool, the bully from the original 1978 Halloween, look, he was bullied too, and that's why he bullied Tommy in the original film. Again, like, I get it. Like, that's something that does make sense because a lot of times bullies are bullied and that's why they're bullied. But I'm just kind of like, again, we're introducing that and it just...
Well, also it comes to nothing.
We're
retroactively changing characters this film does have a certain amount of fan service, particularly in the way it brings back original characters from the 78 film, but then it also doesn't have a good handle on who they are, or maybe that's just me being like, wait, you brought back Tommy Doyle and you did this to him?
Oh, I mean, wait till we get to Miss Nurse Marion Chambers, because I have thoughts to say about that and how this movie does her dirty, whereas the entire opening scene of H2O does way more work for her and is way better.
This is true. Yeah. But we're not there yet. We're still in a 1978 flashback. Basically, what we need to know is that Hawkins was at the center of this, so it was teased in the 2018 film. Here we actually get to see it play out, except that there's a horrible moral issue at the center of it because his partner Pete was, yes, attacked by Michael Myers and eventually killed, but also it wasn't Michael who killed him. It was young Officer Hawkins, who is, by the way, an absolute garbage shot because he cannot hit the side of a barn wall when he is shooting.
So what we have here, we're already making statements about cops, because what we will get later is that another buddy cop covers this up for him. And we also have Hawkins later telling Laurie, I should have shot him on the front lawn when he was surrendering. I'm paraphrasing, but that's... So yeah. We also have a movie that is pro cops shooting people who have surrendered.
Yeah.
I mean, you can quibble. You could be like, well, no, that's the character. It's not the movie. But I don't think the distinction is very clear in this case.
Well, and it's a little bit problematic because it's Will Patton, who everyone fucking loves, and he's also been introduced as a very sound, civil-minded, kind of level-headed dude, somebody that we like. And I do think part of this is meant to be, it's a bit of a condemnation that people can be one way and then change in the future, which is what we see with Lonnie as well. But it's just a little bit like Cake and Eat It Too, where we're trying to shove this message down and it doesn't quite work. And it's also like, why are we doing this though? Like, none of this pays off in enough of a satisfying way, even when we factor in the mob mentality stuff that's going to happen later.
Unless it's going to pay off in Halloween Ends, which...
Oh, God.
I mean, I get it, though. If you're listening to this and you are, like, yelling this at your speakers right now at us, I'm like, I do get it. Unfortunately, we have to review the movie, quote-unquote, that we have in front of our faces. And so I cannot take into consideration what might happen in Ends to excuse my issues with this movie.
Yeah, we can definitely speculate. We're probably going to do a little bit of that at the end, but at the same time, this film was released independently of Ends. They were not released at the same time, so all we can do is judge this film, and this film ends up coming up lacking as a result because there's just all these unresolved issues, but not in like a cliffhangery, ooh, that's satisfying, ooh, I wonder how they're going to resolve this kind of way.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so then we get what I think is a dog shit Donald Pleasance cosplay. You think it's not bad.
I think it looks fine.
It just came out today that this apparently was not CGI, which is what I was going to blame. This is actually a construction foreman, Tom Jones Jr., who is wearing 11 pieces of prosthetic makeup and hair pieces. I don't know, folks. This just did not look good to me, and I was like, do not bring Donald Pleasance into this, please.
I thought we were just going to hear his voice, because we hear his voice yelling like as Thomas Mann is like, trying to stop Jim Cummings from dying. And but then we get that shot of him at the bottom of the stairs. And I was just like, oh shit, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And of course, the score that's playing is the same score that played in the opening of Halloween as the camera pans away from child Michael and his parents are looking at him like, this was fan service. And I was like, you know what? Like,
it's okay.
I think there are moral elements at play with, like, resurrecting a dead actor's performance into a film. But nevertheless, like, this was fine. I was still on board during all this, even though it was kind of like, well, that's kind of hokey, but whatever.
Yeah. I'm actually on board with most of this film through the first act. So
yes,
we cut back to 2018. Yes, we are at a Halloween open mic night. We are reintroduced to Tommy Doyle, who is now played by Anthony Michael Hall.
Did you also catch, so the couple that plays the doctor and the nurse, they were in the first movie.
Oh, God, were they?
So the shot when Michael is starting his, like, you know, one tracker shot down the street, there's a couple that are like fighting to get in their car and they're running late and blah, blah, blah. And it is this couple.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So folks, if you don't know, we're talking about Marcus, who was played by Michael Smallwood, and his girlfriend, Vanessa Carmela McNeil. They are in the Dr. Scrubs and the sexy nurse uniform.
And they're basically the audience surrogate so they can be reminded who all these legacy characters are when we meet them.
I mean, that, and also it feels like a deliberate attempt to address the fact that we really only had young Julian in the first film, as well as weird sheriff with the dumbass hat. But
Creighton Duke.
Yeah, Creighton Duke Stanton. And I was very much like, okay, cool, we're going to get these new characters. They're going to get something to do. Nope. These characters are just here, yeah, as you said, to reintroduce legacy characters like Lindsay Wallace, played by Kyle Richards, Nurse Marion Chambers, once again played by Nancy Stevens, and adult Lonnie, who is now played by Robert Longstreet. And then apart from that, they park in a car and die.
The legacy characters who get away the best out of this movie for me, it is Kyle Richards as Lindsay, who I really, really like her, and I think she has the most suspenseful sequence in the film. But then she's out of the movie.
Indeed. Yeah, we basically, Jamie Lee Curtis, she gets to the hospital, and I don't even know if we ever see her again. I mean, I'm sure she'll show back up in Ends.
I'm sure. But I mean, Lonnie, they at least try to do more with him because he's given lines. Nurse Marion Chambers has, I want to say, 3 lines in this movie. 2 of them are about Loomis. So she is here to be a Loomis stand-in for 2 lines and talk about how Loomis knew, Loomis Lou, blah, 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 blah. And then get stabbed a bunch of times immediately.
Yeah, this poor actress. I love that she keeps coming back because she is a joy to see, and I love that visual connection. But at the same time, can someone please give her something to fucking do? Oh, wait, she's just dead again.
Well, okay, but in the beginning of H2O, and again, I know it's like fruitless to compare to previous sequels, but you know what? This movie keeps reminding me of previous sequels, so what the fuck?
It does.
She's a character still in H2O. Like, you know, she's kind of like this. She's the smoking, acerbic, like, kind of, I'm not putting up with no shit, like, woman.
Yeah, she's fun.
Yes. And yes, she does die at 10 minutes into the movie because she's, you know, the scream, opening kill. She's not a character in this movie. She's nothing.
No,
she is literally a face to remind you about Loomis before getting killed in a manner that is similar to how we met her in the original Halloween.
Yeah.
Oh.
And folks, if you want to hear our thoughts on H2O, we do have a Patreon audio commentary on it. So, you know, go listen to that. Okay, so yeah, basically this bar scene is to reintroduce them and to make sure that we still understand that the town knows who the fuck the Strodes are. So we all cheer to Laurie, and then we immediately cut to the Strodes where we left them off at the end of the last film.
One last gripe. So
okay. Just one? Just one.
Just one. So Tommy's speech, right? It is literally, because we're getting flashbacks constantly as he's like telling us, like Lindsay Wallace, we see Lindsay Wallace in Halloween.
It does not trust us to know who the fuck these people are, does it?
Oh, this movie flashes back to I think a scene earlier in its own film later in the movie.
I hate it when shows do that.
Here's the thing, and I know people don't have a problem with this, but here's my thing. Do not tell me these sequels do not exist. Halloween 2 through Halloween Resurrection do not exist. They have not happened in this new continuity. And then show me a shot from Halloween 2, from 1981's Halloween 2 in this movie. And, you know, I had someone, it's of course whenever we get a flashback to Sheriff Brackett pulling the curtain off of, the sheet off of Annie's corpse to, like, see that she has died.
Okay.
And I get it. You know, people are like, oh, I can look past that because that probably would have happened. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Sure. It probably would have happened, but don't show that to me. Like, don't show me a scene from a movie that you were telling me does not exist in this continuity. And also, in that movie, Ben Tramer was hit by a car, and we're referencing Ben Tramer in this movie later. So...
Yeah, it's such a weird phenomenon with me for these films, because I can appreciate if they say, you know what, we didn't like those other dog shit movies, we're just going to erase them from the continuity. This is what the Halloween franchise kind of loves to do. But then also, yeah, we're so desperate to do this fan service. And it really bothered me when I first saw 2018, and then I got over it. And then we come back into this film, and I'm like, oh my God, we're still doing it. Like, folks, make your own fucking movie and stop doing this.
I can take nods. I mean, again, like, you know, we have the Halloween 3 masks in both movies. Whatever, cool. Like, that's cool. I love seeing the masks. But, like, what if you showed me a fucking shot of Tom Atkins doing something in Halloween 3? Like,
exactly.
No, don't make a nod. Don't directly reference it. It is text. This shot from Halloween 2 is text in this new continuity, so fuck off.
And scene.
I'm done. Now we can move on to the Strodes. Oh, okay. Also, by the way, Curtis, her first line that is not "let it burn," is 53 minutes into this movie.
Whoa, really?
I
really?
clocked it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Also, this movie is too long.
Kind of? It's the same length as the first one, but I feel like less happens.
Well, we have a lot of extraneous stuff, which, I mean, my God, we are like 2 paragraphs into this plot description. Yep. We have so much ground to cover. Okay. Laurie's back. Jamie Lee Curtis. Karen's back. Judy Greer. Allison's back. Andy Matichak. They're in this car. Yes, we're driving to the hospital, and the firemen are arriving to put out Laurie Strode's house, and she's like, oh shit, don't do it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, cops die. Cops die. Firefighters die.
All these firefighters die. They inadvertently release Michael.
And this is cool. Yeah. So James, Jude, Courtney, Nick Castle once again. Apparently there were 11 firemen who get killed in the scene. I think that there are 2 instances that David Gordon Green shows something interesting with his direction. This is one of them. The POV shots from inside the dead fireman's visor as we see Michael dispatching a bunch of these other dudes. I liked it. It's not the most innovative thing, but it was something different. Are you saying so there are 2 things that are in this scene specifically, or 2 things in the whole movie?
In this whole fucking movie. There's only... Okay. I don't like David Gordon Green as a director. I find him too workmanlike. He doesn't bring enough style to anything.
I would mostly agree. And I don't know what your second instance is, but I will tell you mine because it is very, very soon. And it is when the Laurie's next door neighbors get killed, and we have a shot that focuses on the woman as she's dying, and we can hear Michael doing something with her husband's body, but the camera like pans in a circular motion, staying on her until we see him like just stab him like with 5 different knives. I was like, oh, like that's really cool. Nothing else really after this really matches it for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's on par. Well, maybe a step under that kind of one take where Michael wanders through the houses and kills a couple people and picks up his knife in the first film. It felt like a callback to that, but not quite as stylish. Yeah. I didn't mind it. To me, that's one of the things that I don't care about as much with the Halloween franchise is Michael is just kind of always off killing random people, and I don't care if we kill random people. Like, I know that gorehounds like it because this is gnarly, watching this woman get stabbed with a fluorescent light. Right. Ooh, shit. You know, if that's what you're here for, it's good. But for me, I'm like, okay, this is time. Like, this is 3 to 4 minutes that I could have been spending with Karen and Allison and Laurie.
No, I agree with you. Like, I mean, and that's why I'm just kind of like, well, I think that's where the first one did it right. It limited that to one sequence. Like, we were having one sequence of him going around killing a bunch of randos. Unfortunately for this movie, it's the entire movie.
Times. Yeah.
And granted, some characters get more screen time than others. I mean, like, we'll talk about the gays when we get to them, but like they at least have scenes of dialogue before they die.
I have so many thoughts about them. Yes. So we'll get to them shortly. Yeah. Okay, so Laurie goes into surgery. We are reintroduced to former Haddonfield Sheriff Lee Brackett, who is played by Charles Cypher. He overhears Karen mentioning, oh, look, that's Laurie. She just got brought in. And then there's a couple moments that I do want to give this film recognition and praise. And this is one of them where we get, it's too brief for my liking, but the recognition from Karen and Allison that they are grieving for Ray and that he was a good father. And I just think it's really touching. I wanted more of this kind of stuff.
And this is where it's kind of coming from for me, right? Because how much did we say specifically? What did we want the most of out of 2018? We wanted more of the Strodes together.
Yes. And this film almost goes to efforts to keep them apart.
Yes. And you know what? Fine. You can look at us and say, well, this is really focusing on the other members of the town, and we're going to go back to the Strodes later. We have no way of knowing that. But I'm like, you know what?
It's a safe assumption. Yeah,
it is. But you know what? They released a poster for this movie with all 3 Strode women being like, oh, it's the Strodes, blah, 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 blah. And I think combined, they have a total of like less than 30 minutes of screen time in this movie.
Yes. And the frustration for me is that I understand that this is kind of what we have to do because we've decided to keep it on all on one night. And there's only so much that you can do. Like, Lori literally goes into surgery for her abdomen. She's fucking bleeding out all over the place. You're not going to get her up and doing a bunch of stuff. So if you're not going to have Karen do it and you're not going to have Allison do it, then you need to introduce other characters. But I also just feel like, well, why did we make this creative decision when we took a year off? Because we didn't shoot it back to back with the 2018 film and we decided to add another film to it. Like, why did we go with this creative decision where we said the thing that people liked about that first film, we're not going to give it to them. We're going to do mob mentality with a bunch of characters we don't know.
And it makes the ending of this film, Judy Greer's death, even more frustrating because when the credits rolled, I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so sad because Karen is dead. I was like, fuck, this movie didn't give me what I wanted from Judy Greer, and now we're sure as shit not going to get it in the next movie unless, again, she's miraculously going to be alive with scars 4 years later, which...
And I don't think that's the case. Like, she's done exit interviews from this film where she's like, yeah, it's very sad. I mean, she could be lying for the sake of generating press and we'll all be very excited next year. I'm pretty sure that this is a death that is going to stick. And that is disappointing because not just because we fucking love Judy Greer, but also because you're like, it's not as impactful as it could have been because you didn't give her the screen time.
I saw one of our friends, Amelia Emberwing, was like, oh, I love the decision made because I don't care about it. And that's a problem.
Oh, okay. Oh, she was being critical. I was like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
No, because yes, we love Judy Greer, but these movies have done nothing, have given the character of Karen nothing. I mean, she gets more to do in this movie, thank God, but it's still just like nothing. And so when she died, it wasn't like I was like, oh, fuck, I'm sad Karen's dead. It's like, oh, these two movies have misused this great character actress, and that sucks.
I mean, thank God. Set Judy Greer free so she can go off and do something else. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where we look back on it and say, well, fuck, we were excited to see Judy Greer in this. And at the end of the day, we were excited we got to see Judy Greer. Who the fuck is Karen? Still don't know.
Exactly. It's a great way of putting it.
Okay, so we're back at the bar. Yeah, we've got Marcus and Vanessa hanging out with our returnees, and then this is where the penny starts to drop. Oh shit, Michael Myers is not dead. We're getting phone calls from Cameron. We're getting Sheriff Barker at this crime scene. He's played once again by Omar Dorsey. So the firemen's bodies have come out, and also we're getting a news report that does confirm poor Julian from the first film, Jabral Nantambu, is still alive, but this is also all we get of Julian in this movie.
It is. But do you know what else happens on this news broadcast? That Tommy is watching, by the way? It shows a picture of the little mental patient that will soon jump out of a window saying, this is there are other mental patients that escaped. By the way, here's one of them.
Right. Yes. We actually get two pictures. Of course, the picture of Michael Myers' face is blurred, but presumably in the bar, they would have seen it. This is one piece that I have seen a lot of vocal reactions to, where it's like, so we're confusing Michael Myers, who is 6'5" or something, with this short, slightly rotund gentleman who appears to be about 5'4", whose face is very publicly not Michael Myers, and the residents of Haddonfield cannot spot the difference.
And but you know what? Okay, you can say, "Hey, that's the film's statement on mob mentality. It makes people blind. It makes them do stupid things." Like,
sure,
totally get it. I just don't think it works.
Yeah, I don't think it works. And then we have to get hit over the head a couple of times about how bad it is. And that just felt like I was being talked down to, frankly.
When you have Brackett looking at that body going, he's turned us all into monsters, it's like, movie, can you just trust me to get the message?
Well, and that is one of the issues, right? It's the same reason why they have to give us glimpses of what these actors were like in their first iterations back in 1978 and so on. Because the movie doesn't trust us to actually recognize, oh, when I say Lindsay, and I told you this is in continuity with 1978, I'm trusting you to know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I get that that's for people who may not be horror junkies like we are. So it's like, hey, for all you new people that maybe haven't seen the original in forever. But I'm like, you know what? Fuck those people. They're already in the theater. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, let them go watch the original.
Or do it in an organic fashion so that we can say, you were there that night, Lindsay. You barely survived this. Cool. Now we've established it. Let's move on. Like, it's not great storytelling.
Does Lindsay even talk to Laurie in this movie?
Oh, fuck no, she doesn't.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I mean, that's not a critique, like, whatever. As you said, Laurie's incapacitated, but I'm just like, all right.
Okay, so now we're on a high alert because we know that Michael Myers has returned, so the party at the bar dissipates. Vanessa goes out to her car. This is where she discovers somebody's lurking in the back seat, so we're doing a little bit of an urban legend play. Tommy immediately grabs this bat from behind the bar, and this mob starts to build. So we're getting Figaro playing in the car. They advance on it. It drives away, crashes immediately, and the driver escapes. But now we think, oh, Michael Myers was out here. He's on the run. Let's start to gather the mobs and the pitchforks and the torches and do the song from... What is it, Trace?
Oh my god. Okay, it is not here. But y'all, in the hospital, I think it's after whenever Tommy tells Laurie, like, oh, like, you protected me all those years ago, let me protect you, blah, 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 blah. But when the mob is forming, so I literally thought they were going to burst into the mob song, which is what it's called, from Beauty and the Beast. And not helping matters was that the score that was playing. So, Tommy gets up there and he's doing his Gaston thing. The Beast will make off with your children. He'll run off with your wives. Blah, 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 blah. But the score that is playing is very similar, like, staccato beats, except in this case it's synth instead of Beauty and the Beast, like violin or whatever, of bum, 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 bum. And I was like, are we about to do the mob song in this shit? What the fuck are you doing?
Sidebar, if we have any talented listeners, I would love for someone to actually make that. So please take the scene in question and put the mob song from Beauty and the Beast over it and then send it to us.
And Beauty and the Beast is a great movie. It's a cartoon, whatever. But, like, I shouldn't be watching this R-rated slasher movie and being reminded of a children's cartoon. And maybe that's on me. I think I'm the only one who has vocalized this opinion about mob song. But, like, come on, y'all. And if this was just a stupid slasher movie, like so many people keep telling me it is, which, I mean, it is stupid, but it doesn't think it's stupid. And that's the issue. I
will agree with you that I think it is... It believes it's doing more work here than it is actually giving us. And that's all I had to say about that.
Okay. I'm like trying to call. I know I'm getting into my like rage, man. I'm like, nope, Trace. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Bring
just
it back
a
to
movie.
a simmer, just to a boil.
Just the more I talk about it, the more I'm like,
It's still so fresh. It's so fresh.
It's very fresh. Very fresh.
Okay, so speaking of mad and annoyed, let's introduce queer couple Big John, played by Scott MacArthur, and Little John, played by Michael McDonald.
Joe, I've gone on. Yeah, tell me, what is your issue here?
Okay, so let me climb up onto my soapbox. We talk a lot about queer representation, the kinds of things that we would like to see. What happens when people who are not members of a community who try to speak for that community? It doesn't always go well. And I'm not suggesting, again, we could say this is a stupid slasher film. They're including a couple of people of color. They're including a couple of queer characters. This isn't, I'm not going to suggest that this is homophobic or that it's incredibly offensive, but we are very clearly playing with certain kinds of stereotypes about affluent white gays who are ridiculous and sassy, who have apparently immaculate interior design skills, who put down a golf club so that they can pick up a cheese knife when they discover a stranger in their house, who take off a robe so that we can walk around in satin boxer shorts. Like,
who don't call the police when they see a bloody handprint in their house.
Who literally refer to each other, a life partner, as Big John or Little John, not just John, or a different nickname or something like that. These are queer characters who have been written by straight people, and what we got are caricatures. And I do want to give a shout out to Kay from Salem Horror Fest, because she did go on a bit of a Twitter rant about this, because I hadn't thought of it. I just thought, oh, the Big John, Little John thing is fucking dumb. I don't like it. And Kay said it's actually leaning into it's not malicious homophobia, but it's like inching towards that. Because if you think about it, this is straight filmmakers and screenwriters saying, basically, we have a queer couple who call each other Big Dick and Little Dick. Because Johnson.
Yeah, no, I get that. And it's also like, so I wasn't as bothered by this as you were. That being said, seeing it in a theater with a crowd of people, like, they were being laughed at. It's a distinction of, okay, are we laughing with these characters or are we laughing at these characters?
Absolutely.
And it is laughing at them. I wasn't particularly bothered because I was like, I mean, yeah, sure. Like, there are totally gay couples like that out in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just more, this is the only queer representation that we're going to get in this movie.
Yeah.
And are we introducing other characters so that we can just explicitly laugh at them? No. But it's apparently totally cool. Let's do it with the queer characters.
Well, and they're introduced because they're living in the Myers house. Because, of course, these two gays, like, bought up the Myers house at whatever fucking deal it was in. And, like, did it all up, like, with home makeover.
Yeah, I did see a couple of funny references from various folks saying, okay, this is apparently the day and age where queer couples will buy rock-bottom real estate, zhuzh it up, and then brutally be dismembered and murdered a la AHS Murder House Season 1.
I mean, and there are many bad decisions made in this movie. And again, I've seen people complain where it's like, well, I mean, like, if you were in a horror movie, would you? And I'm like, yes, I totally get that.
Oh, yeah, we would all be dead if we were in a horror film.
100%. But there is a difference between, oh my God, I'm being chased and I have a split second to decide which way to go. So I'm running up the stairs instead of going out the front door. That's a bad decision that, okay, fight or flight, whatever. Between an illogical decision, like, again, not calling the cops when you see a bloody handprint in your house, or sitting in a car watching a nurse get murdered when you have an easy out to get away.
Yeah, the residents of Haddonfield are apparently prone to mob mentality and also just really shit decision making.
But again, illogical. You can make a bad decision in a movie by all means. Like, adrenaline's up, whatever. But it's illogical. It makes no sense. But I digress.
You digress, but before we move on, Trace, I would like to play a round of comedies. So since we are laughing at these characters, let's have a couple of jokes at their expense, shall we?
Sure.
So I'm going to tell jokes, and you're going to try to give me the punchline. So here we go.
Okay.
Where do Big John and Little John order pizza from? It's rapid fire. Let's go, man. Let's go.
Big dicks. I don't know.
Papa John's.
Oh. Okay.
All right.
I get what we're doing.
All right. What is Big John and Little John's favorite TV show?
John in Cincinnati.
Would accept, yes. I was looking for Dirty John. All right. When it gets cold outside, what do Big John and Little John wear?
Long Johns.
There we go. And your final one.
Okay, I got one.
Who is Big John and Little John's favorite former wrestler?
Fuck. I don't know any wrestlers' names.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh. You said these were bad jokes. I think they're really funny.
Terrible. Okay, back to the movie.
Do you think the film does the same thing with Marcus and What's-Her-Face in terms of being like your token black characters in a movie?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't read them myself, a white person. I do not read them quite as caricaturized, but I think it's telling that, like, arguably the biggest joke death in the movie comes at Vanessa's expense.
Oh, yeah, you're sure right about that.
But also, just to go back to my very stupid game, I will say that if Big John and Little John opened up their relationship, I 100% think that they would try to find a Papa John.
I literally was like, I don't know what you're trying to say with this joke, so I just made up a fake pizza place. There's no big dicks, by the way. I just made it. I was like, what is he trying to do here?
Again, challenge to listeners. Find us a Big Dick's pizza. I'm willing to bet it exists.
But also, hopefully you caught on to the game faster than I did, because I'm quite embarrassed by my lack of ability to catch on.
Oh, no, sweetie, you just edited that down so it sounds like super fast-paced and quick.
No, it's fine. Okay.
Okay. So let's go back to the hospital where we have Allison and Karen. They're being questioned by Deputy Graham, who is a character in this movie, played by Brian F. Durkin and Sheriff Barker, respectively. This kind of just feels like a bit of a catch-up, like, yeah, we're doing our due diligence that the police would investigate a little bit of what happened earlier this evening. And then Cameron arrives, and he tells Allison about the mob that Tommy Doyle is putting together, and she tells Mom she wants to go because she wants to avenge Dad. And this really undoes a lot of the grief stuff from earlier. And I have a question for you, Trace. Why is it that Karen believes that Michael is coming after Laurie and coming to the hospital?
Okay, I think I can make sense of this because Karen, I mean, granted, she doesn't know about Sartain, like only Allison does. But to Karen, Michael got loose and then showed up at Laurie's house. She doesn't know.
Oh.
So that's all Karen. I mean, again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she does know about Sartain. Maybe Allison told her when they were crying about the dad. But I think that's the logic there, is that to Karen, it is just Michael got out and Michael showed up at Laurie's house.
Right. Okay. I guess that makes sense, because I spent a bunch of time in these scenes wondering why Karen was flipping her lid, demanding for extra security, and I was just like, okay, what does Karen seemingly know that we don't? Or is it just, you know, we're doing a riff on Halloween 2, or we're setting up Halloween Ends?
Yeah, same thing with this Cameron thing, though. Cameron tells Allison, after he apologizes really quickly, by the way.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're already forgiven.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Actually, even before this, I love when we get to tell Judy Greer that Michael's alive, but then instead of her reaction, we get a smash cut to Allison, who just goes, "What?" Okay. But Cameron tells her, he's infected your family, he's infected my family, with grief and fear for 40 years. He's gonna die tonight. I'm like, okay. I kind of get it with the Strodes, because again, it wasn't really Michael. I mean, it was the trauma that he inflicted on Laurie that made her raise Karen the way she did, and like that fucked up their family. This movie invents a trauma for Lonnie in this opening flashback, right?
Right.
But we don't know how this has impacted their family. And granted, I'm nitpicking here because, again, this is one line from Cameron, whatever. But the problem is we don't have an entire movie showing Lonnie's trauma and what effect that had on his family, outside of maybe he drinks more often than he should and his son is kind of a shitbag sometimes.
Yeah.
And again, like, we have a movie where Lonnie really has more to do in this movie than Laurie Strode, which is fine. But none of it has any substance to it. So I'm just sitting here like, all right, well, there's that kid from the first movie who was a bully, and that's it. There's nothing here to feed me into this character, to make me give a shit about this character, outside of the fact that he was in the original film.
Right. Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this after I had first watched the film. I don't think it could have flown because people are too attached to Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode, and obviously we wanted more of Karen and Allison. Right. But I couldn't help but think that this film actually would have been more successful if we had just said, Laurie's in surgery, she's at the hospital, and then we don't see any of them for the rest of the film, and we're only following either Tommy or Lonnie or Cameron or somebody else, and it's like we've got a new focal point that we can actually just tell a story, because this movie very much wants to say, look at what Michael has done to this entire town. It's not just Laurie who's been affected by the legacy of this. But it also doesn't want to do the work. Like, it has Tommy make a brief speech at this bar. It has Cameron drop that in one line. We're going to talk about some really shit purple prose that Jamie Lee Curtis has to say later on. And it's just like, oh man, this is not good stuff, folks. Like, if you wanted to tell this story, you needed to spend the time to actually address these issues.
And we haven't addressed the Anthony Michael Hall in the room, but he is actively not good. And I don't know if it's because he's not a good actor or if it's because he is given not very good dialogue. Because again, like, I don't think this is a good script. I think a lot of the lines are very, very bad. So I don't know if, like, I mean, again, had Paul Rudd been in this role, like, would he have done it better? I don't know, but
I don't know.
I can tell you right now, Anthony Michael Hall in this movie is not good, and Tommy is, ooh boy.
Yeah, like, he's a really, I mean, part of this is that, to me, he's striking off all of the conservative kind of mega anti-vaxxer vibes that just make me bristle. So I don't like him as a character, but that's my own politics that's coming into play. I feel like the film is taking an easy escape route by saying, oh yeah, this is Tommy Doyle. You remember Tommy. He's a beloved character from this franchise, and this is who he is now. And you have to invest in that. And I'm just like, no, this is just a guy who's an asshole. And you named him Tommy Doyle.
But it's not even the fact where I'm like, oh my god, hey, they took this beloved character and like made him like a right-wing MAGA person. Like, you know what? Whatever. But Tommy's not, like, I don't give a shit about Tommy Doyle.
Okay.
I just think that Anthony Michael Hall's a really bad actor in this movie.
I mean, that's also fair. Yeah. I do think it's a bit more of the lines. Like, he's not a character. He's a mouthpiece for a mob. And that's not a lot to work with. But I don't also think that Anthony Michael Hall is doing anything to elevate the performance.
Right. No, I would agree with you there as well.
Okay, so speaking of this mob, let's get to a little bit of its formation. So we get a montage of Lonnie, Tommy, Lindsay, Nurse Marion, Vanessa, Marcus, and also Allison, because she has snuck out after leaving the knife for Grandma. So they are driving around, they're recruiting volunteers for the mob or telling other people it's not safe, you need to go inside.
Another line that I'm confused by. Michael Myers has haunted this town for 40 years. Tonight we hunt him down. According to 2018, no one gives a shit about Michael Myers. No one cares except for Laurie Strode because she's the basket case. So Michael Myers has not haunted this town for 40 years. He has been forgotten. The entire reason we have Tommy's speech at the beginning is so that Marcus can be like, oh, I didn't know about any of that about the boogeyman, and I've lived here my entire life. Okay.
I think that's why we brought back these legacy characters, because they are the ones who say, oh, I'm haunted by this tragedy because I have been living for 40 years with this. And then they infect the rest of the town with their hysteria and their paranoia. I don't think it works, but I do kind of think that that's why we're doing it this way. It's not just random Haddonfield residents who are saying this. It's the people who were directly affected by it 40 years ago.
And you know what? And I know that we're ignoring Halloween 2 because it's this brother-sister thing. That's what they wanted to get rid of. But honestly, and this is a complaint that people had with Halloween 2018. And I was like, fuck it, whatever. I'll buy into it.
Okay.
Because it's Laurie. But when we're extending it to the whole town being like, oh my god, this was like a big thing, which I get it. You know, 3 teenagers were killed. But it would make more sense if it was also Halloween 2 and all the employees at that hospital.
Oh, right. Yeah. Which, you know what? They'll probably do it in Halloween Ends.
Probably. I mean, again, we keep talking about the whole thing with McBride and Green was like, oh, Michael's just a man in these movies. He's not superhuman. But obviously...
Oh, that's bullshit. Because this movie makes him super fucking human.
Exactly. And granted, maybe Ends will address this. Maybe he has some kind of genetic disorder, so it like makes sense or whatever. But it's like, just fucking Cult of Thorn it. Like, that seems like that's where you're going.
Magic and supernatural.
Ugh. Okay.
Okay, so they wind up parking at the outskirts of a public park where Lindsay sees the shitty teens who were annoying the gay couple earlier. So she gets out of the car to go and tell them, you gotta go home, there's a serial killer on the loose. And we do get a slightly amusing sexual euphemism from Vanessa when she asks Marcus about his big gun. And then Michael attacks. And we lose Marion, Vanessa, and Marcus. They're all just more or less killed.
I mean, again, I will just reiterate, if Marion had more than 3 lines and more than one that wasn't about Loomis, like, I'm so sad that this character was wasted like this. Ugh.
They kind of make her garbage. She can't work a gun. She can't shoot. Like, nobody in this film can shoot, apparently. Marcus is also very, very stupid. And Vanessa is apparently also very stupid because she just accidentally dies by suicide because Michael kicks the gun so it discharges in her face.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think it's supposed to be like, oh, it's a funny, shocking, gory kill, but all of this, I was just like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing.
I thought that when Marcus gets the knife in his eye, I thought that looked really cool. Like, that was probably the death that hurt the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, all this is just kind of, okay, like, whatever. It's kill, kill, kill. But then we at least do get him stalking Lindsay through these trees. And I mean, I have no connection to Kyle Richards. I've never seen an episode of Real Housewives of anything, so I can't speak to any of that. But I genuinely enjoyed watching her here, and I was like, fuck yeah, more of this.
Yeah, because I think there's a sense of play, and this is an actual chase scene. Like, these movies have not really given us much of this. It's usually just Michael arrives, Michael kills people, Michael leaves.
Yeah.
So to actually have somebody get a few good licks in, because I do like that she's got a bit of ingenuity. She puts bricks into that staple of Halloween trick-or-treating, the pillowcase. And then, yeah, she realizes, I am not going to win this. He's way too strong for me. And she hightails it into the woods. And I was like, this is proper slasher. I'm actually enjoying this right now.
No,
I don't know that
agree.
it has anything to do with Kyle Richards, but in terms of the staging and the development, I was like, yeah, okay, more of this, please.
Yeah, and also I do love the touch though, because he only lets her go because she starts taking off his mask, and it's only then that he like throws her to the side. Otherwise, she would have been dead. So I was like, okay, I mean that's a kind of a callback to the first one when he's like trying to strangle Laurie and like she pulls his mask off. But still, I was like, okay, cool, like that's kind of fun.
Sure. Do you like it later when Karen also does it?
We're calling back to the original movie and an earlier scene in this movie.
I mean, I get it. Hey, like, if it works once, keep doing it. Save yourself. Rip off a mask or two.
Well, you know where we are, Joe? We are at the 53-minute mark when Laurie finally gets to say something.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. I mean, I basically just condensed a bunch of shit. So it's like Lonnie, Cameron, and Allison find the car and all the bodies, Halloween 3 masks, Lindsay's still alive. Cool. Okay, let's go back to the hospital. So Hawkins is brought into the same room as Laurie. They do, yes, their kind of emotional connection thing. It's tender, it's sweet. I didn't mind this. I didn't get anything out of it, but it's two actors I enjoy watching, interacting.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, again, if my sources, plural, statement about, oh yeah, the original cut that I saw a couple years ago or a year ago, like, it had more to do with how Frank was Karen's father, like, that's cool. There are remnants of that here.
I think so, yeah. If nothing else, it's we could have been something and it just didn't go that way. And I like giving just a bit more of a shade of backstory to these characters.
Right.
It's not like they're doing much more with Hawkins and Laurie than they did with Lonnie, but I know who these two are, so I care more. Maybe that's not fair, but it's true.
And the exact line from Laurie we get in this scene. So she's talking to Hawkins and she goes, "Do you remember that night at the bar? I never said anything because I couldn't be sure. I was so messed up, but you helped me. I always liked you."
Yeah, see, I definitely just read it as, you helped me when I was attacked by Michael in 1978 and I was messed up and you were there for me. But with this new information, it does read differently.
Which, I mean, if this is supposed to be a reveal and Halloween ends, I apologize to everyone for spoiling that.
We're magic! Supernatural! Okay, but enough of this tender shit, Trace. Let's move down to the ER, which is rapidly filling with people who are hysterical and they're losing their minds. You know, they're so scared. Oh my God. We've got people arriving and saying, "Hey, has my son or daughter been brought in?" And it is not good. It is camp.
I'm glad you brought up the C word, because I have seen that. It does fall into that category. And I know that we've used that as I mean, again, look at Malignant. We have used that as an excuse. I'm hesitant to say the word excuse to explain away some over-the-top things in movies. Yes. And again, your mileage may vary, but I would argue that Malignant knows very much what kind of movie it is and what it's trying to do, no matter if this middle 70 minutes is taking itself more seriously.
Right.
Whereas I don't think this movie thinks it's being camp. I mean, to me, I guess this would be the more accurate definition of camp in that it's unintentionally bad.
Yeah, I am actually very interested to kind of follow the legacy of this film over time, because that's usually where unintentional camp will be rediscovered and embraced. I think right now it's still a little too open and raw. If people are trying to defend this, they don't want to acknowledge any of that. And if people dislike it, I think they're focusing on other things, or they're saying, this is so bad, it's not even enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is also like Brackett coming in because Brackett only talks about his daughter, by the way.
It's all about his fucking daughter.
He's like, I wasn't there to put a bullet in his brain like I should have because my daughter was killed. It's like, thanks, dude. We get it. Also, yes, let's talk more about cops that just want to like shoot people there.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where Officer Graham, still a character, couldn't pick him out of a lineup. He tries to put the hospital on lockdown, and this is where Tommy and Brackett really get riled up, and they start getting everybody else riled up. And Trace, say it with me. Evil dies tonight.
I mean,
dies tonight.
I'm already tired of people complaining about that. And this isn't a knock at you, but just because, yeah, it is fucking stupid. It is said over and over. And it does make sense in the context of a mob. Like, they will have a chant.
Yeah.
But, I don't even have a reason for not liking it. I fucking hate it.
I have enjoyed some of the memes that have come out of this. And again, I think it's just like we're all still in a bit of lockdown mentality where we all watched the same movie. We had very different reactions, but we can GIF and meme the fuck out of it. And you know what? By the time that people listen to this on the main feed, they probably won't even remember this shit because we'll have gone through 28 new versions of this. But right now, holy fuck, if you played a drinking game with this phrase in this movie, you would die.
It's bad. It is. Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad. Yeah.
That's it.
So this is when Laurie learns that Michael is still alive because Tommy is just running around this hospital like a tornado.
Because this is the mob song.
Basically, yeah. I don't like what we're doing with Laurie here, where she is putting herself at risk. She is acting irrationally. She's encouraging Tommy, like, yeah, go kill that motherfucker. I'm going to be down there in 5 minutes to join you. Karen's like, Mom, can you please lie down? And Laurie's injecting herself with random medication so that she can go down and join the mob.
See, though, this makes sense to me given what we know about her from Halloween 2018. So, like, I get not liking that this particular character beat, but I buy into this. I believe that she would be like, fuck the fact that I'm literally gutted right now. Like, I'm going to shoot some adrenaline into me and go. And again, I like these scenes. I like watching Karen be the rational one and being like, y'all, like, stop it. Like, blah, blah, blah. Even if she is like, he's coming here, but he's not.
Yeah, I got to do the heel turn. He's coming here, but also no, he's not. That's not him. Oh my god. Humanity, blah, blah, blah.
Which, really, Allison should have told her about Sartain. That way she could be like, oh, okay, we're fine. You know what? Y'all go do your mob thing. It's fine. Go away.
You know what? That actually seems like the one smart creative decision that the film made in between films. Like, okay, we're going to do a lot of callbacks. We are going to draw a lot on what we did in 2018. But yeah, even we recognize that Sartain was a big fucking mistake. So let's just not reference him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we do get to see a brief glimpse of him, blah.
No, I know, but see, the problem for me is, though, they didn't realize that because they realized it. They realized it because people complained about it. And and that's the problem. Like, they weren't smart enough to be like, oh, that wasn't a good idea. Again, it's the same issue I had when I was talking about the first movie, where it's like, you're having someone on set be like, oh, the fans will like this, oh, the fans will like not like that. So this feels like a movie that was made listening to a certain subset of fans. And you can come at me and be like, okay, you're Trace, you're mad because you weren't in the subset of fans that they listened to. Right. Whatever. Fuck it. Like, I don't even care at this point.
Okay, come back down to a simmer and a boil for me.
But it is the fact, though, that they are listening to fans. Like, it is so evident that they are taking cues from fandom. And that is really, I mean, I get it. You know, like, when you're working with a franchise, yes, sure, you want to give the fans what they want. But this seems like a movie, especially this one compared to 2018, that is hinged upon fan opinion. Like, that was written with fan opinion in mind. Like, they literally had Twitter up as they were writing things. Like, oh, like, search for this and see what someone would say about that.
Probably not that bad, but yes.
I'm sorry.
Definitely written in response to certain things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to our queer couple, because it's time to off them. Any thoughts about these death scenes?
I mean, Big John. Oh, yeah, because the irony, right? Because the shorter one is Big John, the taller one is Little John.
Oh, God, isn't it so funny, though? Ha ha, ha ha ha.
Well, it was so funny because I was, like, that one guy is like Baby Stewart from Mad TV, and I was trying to peg the other one, but he was, did you ever watch The Mick with Sweet D from It's Always Sunny? It was like a 2-season Fox show.
I know it. I didn't watch it, no.
a super fucking funny show.
I know. You've mentioned.
Anyway,
okay.
Well, we don't get to see Little John die because he looks at Michael and he goes, "Oh, Michael, you've come home," and then stands there as Michael walks towards him and kills him.
I know.
But I think it's supposed to be this big moment, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's a whimper. And I have seen some people say, oh, well, Michael positions the body in a romantic way, and he puts on Anne Murray, Canadian icon, and it's romantic. And I've been accused of a reach. But folks, let's not pretend that Michael Myers is a closeted queer romantic who feels badly for killing this gay couple who moved into his old house. Like,
you know what?
That is not what's happening. Michael is a showboat performer who likes to rearrange corpses.
No, you know what? If that's the big reveal in Halloween Ends, that's the motive behind all this, I will give this movie 5 stars.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. Anyway, yeah, okay, so they're dead. This is actually intricate with some of the mob stuff, yeah. So we've got to do the whole mistaken identity. Laurie gets re-injured because, of course, she gets caught up in the middle of this, and you can't control a mob. That's the whole point.
I feel like, I don't know. So is this when the guy dies? No, not yet. Okay.
No, yes, yeah, we're getting there.
It almost looks like Laurie or Karen or someone is going to get trampled to death, right?
Right. Yes.
I almost, and again, like this is me being like, oh, like what other version of this movie would I like more? But I almost feel like if you're really going to make a statement about the mob and how bad groupthink is and like mob mentality, whatever, I almost think it would have been more effective if you're going to kill Karen, let's say, to have Karen get killed in this mob thing by a mob, not by Michael Myers. Like, to me, that would be a more effective way of getting your message across if you are in fact trying to deliver a message.
Yeah, but that's going to be super fucking unpopular with people. They're not going to want to see that.
But then don't make a movie under the guise of having a message. Just make it simple. Just make a simple slasher movie.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm thinking of other mob scenes. Like, you know me, I love a good trample scene. So some of this chaos and tight hallways and stairwells, I'm kind of enjoying. There's one part where Karen full on goes down a flight of stairs and then just gets back up and continues running. And I thought, okay, well, that's not how that works. But I thought back to Candyman. The end of Candyman, we've got a mob. They are surrounding this burning effigy of everything that they associate with Candyman. They know that Helen is inside, and there's something about the energy. And I think that this film does a decent job of capturing the chaos and the madness that goes with this. Like, it looks terrifying to be caught up in it. But the problem is that it needs you to buy into the fact that these people are so stupid. And I don't like that, because in this mix, we also get this brief moment where Oscar, the kid that I thought was kind of queer-baited, Cameron's best friend who got hung on the fence in the first film, she sees his body in the morgue. Yeah. And it's in here. And I don't even know what to do with it, because it's clear that we're supposed to feel very bad for her. Oh no, this is how she found out, because the hospital is swarmed with people and they couldn't even tell her if her son was here. And oh gosh, it's heartbreaking. Except also we've got the mob song from fucking Beauty and the Beast going on in the background. Like, it's not working.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, a lot of our critiques like this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And I realize that it's not evidence. it's not a reason. So
it's opinion, yeah.
If it does work for you, that's great. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I'm envious. And I don't say that with a hint of, like, condescension. I'm not trying to be like, oh, well, like, it's good enough for you. I wish I was that dumb. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. So if it comes across that way, I apologize.
The more that we get into this, the more I feel like we keep speculating or talking about things that would have worked differently or better. And again, that's also not criticism. That's just us wanting different things. But I think it's because the film isn't doing it well. So as a result, we're left with nothing but idle speculation of how it could have played out better. So, like, you're saying, oh, it would have been interesting to have had Karen die in this, or maybe it would have been interesting to have not had it be some guy who is so obviously not Michael Myers. But the movie obviously wants us to feel very bad that this gentleman ends up dying by suicide by jumping off of this 3 or 4 story floor. And I don't feel anything when this happens. I don't think, oh my God, what a testimony to how mob violence can just pollute and corrupt a town. Like, I don't think any of that. And then characters tell me I should think that. And I just go, no, movie, please don't.
I think that's the issue, right? Yeah, because when you have characters spelling this shit out for you, it's like, okay, well, movie, you are trying to deliver a message because you're having your characters tell me flat out.
Well, and you're also doing stuff like you're having a point of view shot of this man falling to his death and we're getting gratuitous gore close-up. So how bad am I supposed to feel, or am I supposed to appreciate the damage that his body has suffered?
Goriest part of the movie, too, is this man's corpse. But you're right, though. I mean, even with this woman looking at Oscar's body, it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. This should be kind of upsetting, but it is and this is the way the editing comes into play. It is juxtaposed with this mob, which, as we've already discussed, is borderline camp. So we have a scene or a moment that's supposed to be meaningful, I think. Put side to side with this ridiculous mob. So
right.
Totally, it's off. And we talked a lot in 2018 about the comedy and whether it works. And, I know it worked more for me than it did for you. But this is just a tonal dissonance that is just like, no, this doesn't work.
Yeah, and then we haven't even talked about it, but this is also when Laurie is back up in the room and she and Hawkins are just trading really awful stilted dialogue. So Laurie is saying stuff about how this is Michael's masterpiece, this idea that he is trying to generate chaos, to which I say, absolutely not. Michael doesn't have ambition like that. We've talked about how he is the shape, he is the void, he's the boogeyman, he is not a human being. So why is Laurie suddenly imbuing him with all of this malice and intentionality?
He says it's because of Sartain.
Yeah, and Laurie is saying stuff like, oh, Michael has transformed this town of good people and how it needs to die, and you're just like, no, this is a misunderstanding of who this character is. This is also happening while this mob thing is happening. I've got whiplash.
Well, and I mean, this is around the time, too, when we get the flashback again to Hawkins and having the cop trade their guns and cover him up. And I'm like, this mixed messaging of this movie is like so weird. And also, again, the movie thinking we're stupid. So, Hawkins tells her, oh, it's because of Sartain. So we get a flashback to Sartain from 2018 and, him stabbing Hawkins. And I'm like, y'all, I don't... And then Laurie's like, well, I've seen his face. And we get a flashback to the first movie showing when she takes his mask off. And I'm like, trust me. Trust me.
No, I can't. You're stupid. I've got to explain everything. But also, I'm not going to explain certain things. Because, Trace, I actually do need you to clarify to me, what the fuck is Hawkins talking about? When he does this, Michael is actually just a 6-year-old boy who wants to go home, and he's looking out his window in his bedroom, and is he suggesting that Michael is a human being and he doesn't deserve to be treated the way that they're treating him, or the way that they're making him something bigger than what he is?
See, I didn't even
because he's also talking about how he should have shot him when he had the chance.
I didn't even think about that. To me, that was just we're just setting up something so that way the end makes sense when Judy Greer goes upstairs to look out the window just like Michael Myers did. Like that to me, that was the only reason that speech was there. Yeah.
No, yeah, you're 100% right. That's the only fucking reason that it's in there. And yet, it's also in here. So...
Yeah.
You can't just put in lines of dialogue because it's foreshadowing what's going to happen. Because, P.S., it also happens again. I guarantee it when we get to Halloween Ends. There's this line about how Laurie says, oh, we'll find him on some other Halloween. And I'm like, oh, you mean in 5 years with a little COVID twist?
P.S., and this is not an issue that I have, in case people are going to think that I'm raising it because of that, but half of that monologue that Laurie ends the film with is in the trailer for this movie.
Oh, really? Is it?
Oh, yeah. When he kills, the more he kills, the more he transcends. That's literally in the trailer.
Oh, my God. You want to talk about a line that made me roll my fucking eyes? The more he kills, the more he transcends. Fuck off.
I know.
That just has David Gordon Green written all over it.
But again, that's dipping into Cult of Thorn territory, where it's like, all right, so he's he's doing the mayor in Buffy season 3. He's killing people instead of eating these giant bug things, but he's gonna ascend into something.
Oh my God. Wait, if Michael Myers turns into a giant serpent in Halloween Ends, 5 stars.
What if this is just a big old troll on fans and they're like, oh wait, we're gonna give you a Michael Myers kaiju movie?
I am here for it. If this is where it all goes, automatic win. I will rescind everything that I have been saying for these last
100%. Like, if that's what we're doing, fine. Like, go for
Sure.
broke.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I have no idea how much time we have actually left in this movie, but we're getting down to it in my notes. I think because at this point I was just like, I can't. Okay.
Well,
sure.
no, because there are so many quote unquote characters in this movie. We are bouncing around constantly.
So let's bounce to Lonnie and Cameron and Allison. So they have realized, much in the way that Hawkins was just talking about, oh, Michael has probably gone home. So they go to the old Myers house. Lonnie goes in first. They wait 2.5 seconds. He doesn't come out. So then they go in after him. This is when Allison shoots a pumpkin. She and Cameron, they split up because, as you should in a slasher film. She discovers the bodies of Big John and Little John. And then Cameron sees that Lonnie's body has actually been stuffed into the attic crawl space.
Okay, so I was confused about how he died because what it looked like was Michael Myers shut his head in the attic door because his head's kind of sticking out.
I think he just stabbed him and then shoved the body up there like you would suitcases in an overhead compartment of a plane.
I mean, and look, I think I said this in 2018. I am not one to be like, well, Michael Myers wouldn't do this, and Michael Myers wouldn't do that.
Right.
Because honestly, at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't really care that much. Like, whatever, just make it a cohesive movie, which this movie is not. But it's like, I've seen people be like, oh, this movie turned Michael Myers into Jason Voorhees. I think there's even a part where he runs. And I was like, yeah, that,
It's, yeah. It's not incorrect.
That's it. That's what it does. So, I mean, yeah, I could quibble with the fact that I'm like, okay, why the fuck does Michael Myers put him in the attic? But I guess it's the same thing of like, oh, in the original film, he puts Annie on the bed with Judith's headstone and he has what's-her-face stuffed in the closet. Like, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. It didn't bother me. I actually think that, again, if you look at this as a contained scene of Allison and Cameron versus Michael Myers in this tight, enclosed area of the Myers house, I actually think it's a pretty good set piece. It's just, there's so much garbage on both sides of it that, at this point in the film, my patience is just kind of gone. And I'm like, okay, so is this the end? Is this the climax? Are we almost there?
And here's again, not to be more with Cameron, but the audience, if you have not seen that deleted scene from the first movie, is just left with how much of an asshole he was in the first movie, and then gets this one-line apology, and then Allison, again, like you said, has blind memory loss and completely forgets about it.
Relationship amnesia.
So this death of his feels more like it's meant to be like a fuck yeah, kill that guy, but Allison's also upset about it at the same time.
Oh, she's so upset, yeah.
I'm getting really mixed signals about what I'm supposed to feel about this character. But again, because I've seen this other scene, I'm like, well, shit, that's kind of what's in my mind, so I can't remove it. I don't know. It's just really weird. He does get a really brutal death. He gets shoved, his neck shoved down in this wooden thing, a bunch.
And then twist.
And it's good. It's brutal. But it's also just but Cameron is also not really a character in this movie. Any feelings I have about Cameron are based solely on the first film because he had way more of meat to work with in that movie than he does in this one.
Yeah, I basically just jettisoned the relationship issues between the two of them from the first film and took my reading from the way that she reacts in this moment. So I was like, oh no, she's really upset. It's, it's sad. It's tragic. And you don't want him to die because even if he is a shitty kid, he doesn't deserve it. Nobody deserves this death. But yeah, you're not wrong. If you're reading what the film has actually done for this character and where the arc has gone, he's not a good character, and we shouldn't feel too sad that he dies horribly.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Allison shouldn't be upset because whatever,
she clearly still has feelings for him. Yeah,
but it does feel like the movie's like, oh, you should feel upset because she's upset, and I don't feel like that's very earned.
Fair enough. Yeah. So then we get an Allison versus Michael Myers showdown, and much in the way that Lindsay did earlier, she actually gets in a few good blows. So that's good. And then she takes a tumble down the stairs and she breaks a foot. So good thing we're jumping ahead because I don't think she'd be able to outrun him in ends otherwise. And just when you think she's about to get it, Trace, we've got Big John's check-off pitchfork. Because he does mention, oh, next time I'll get my pitchfork.
I did appreciate the irony, though, because again, what is your standard mob weapon of choice? A pitchfork.
Pitchforks and torches.
I do like that Judy Greer attacks him with a fucking pitchfork because now she's part of the mob.
Sure. And then she literally curb stomps him on the stairs. Curb stomps Trace. In Halloween Kills. Not something I thought I was going to see in this movie.
We're not even at my biggest, like, eye roll of the movie yet. Trust me.
I mean, here's the thing. If this was the way that they killed Michael, like if it's Judy Greer or Laurie Strode or Allison curb stomping Michael Myers' head into oblivion on the Myers staircase, absolutely. Fuck yeah, I'm here for it. But he just puts his jaw back together and gets back up and chases Karen down a dark alley into another gotcha trap? What the fuck are we doing?
I was fine with this up until the gotcha, because I was literally like, go fuck yourself.
Well, you hated it in the first film, so they did it again, and you hated it again.
I like the gotcha in the first film. I don't like Jamie Lee Curtis having another line right after her, which undercuts her line.
Okay. But then you don't want it here.
Well, because the hubris of this movie. Going, hey, y'all, remember that moment you liked in the movie from 3 years ago? We're not just pulling from Legacy. We're not pulling from the first one anymore. We're pulling from our own movie because it was that good. Like, that is the vibe I got whenever Judy Greer goes, gotcha. And it's literally the same thing. She's luring him into a trap, except this time it doesn't work. I mean, I'm sorry. Both times it doesn't work. Because it didn't work in the first one.
Well, one could argue that it works both times, but then circumstances prevail that allow Michael to escape. But I'm curious, the first time you saw this, so Michael is encircled by this vigilante mob. Shout out to the lady who brought the iron to the mob fight. Mm-hmm. Love you. You've got your own Facebook group. Sure. So we've got this mob surrounding Michael Myers. It seems like the film has come to a climax. They begin to beat the shit out of him. We get another fuck yeah moment from Karen as she stabs him in the back. Did you think this movie was over? Because I would have ended the movie here. Or I actually would have ended the movie with him encircled. And it's like, you know what? You can find out how it ends when we come back next year.
No, because I knew we were going to have a cliffhanger. Not because someone told me. I was just like, okay, like when I hear it's half a movie, I was like, okay, well, we're going to have a cliffhanger. But
well, that would have been a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Couple of things with this. So I forgot, because again, like in the first one, how Laurie undercuts Karen's gotcha by doing Happy Halloween, Michael, and then she cuts Michael. Mm-hmm. This one, she says gotcha, and then we zoom in. I don't know if it's right after or if like we get like a beat, but Sheriff Brackett goes, hey, Michael, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare.
I barfed in my own mouth.
Because that line, I get it. It is an iconic line from the original film, whatever. This man who is in his 70s or 80s would not remember that he said this line. It's fan service, and that is what it is. And talk to me again in a month when we're talking about Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which I am sure will be filled with plenty of fan service for me. But you know what?
Yeah, listeners, I want to hear you come for this hypocrite co-host of mine.
I am waiting for it, because I know, because again, someone tells me that I didn't like this movie, and they're like, oh, but Trace, you like the stupidity that is Zombievers, so how could you not like the stupidity that is Halloween Kills? And the difference there is that one of them is trying to be stupid, the other one is not. But,
right.
But I was like, are you fucking kidding me with this everyone's entitled to one good scare? Like, oh, you're right, barfed. It's barf. It is so stupid. And I don't know if you noticed this, but the music that starts playing when they all start going to town on him is the track, the good track. I'm sorry, there's multiple good tracks, but the one that everyone loved from the first movie, which is The Shape Hunts Allison. It's like a remix of that theme when they start beating the shit out of Michael Myers.
Wow. Yeah. It is interesting because I think taken out of context of the rest of this film, if you just saw this, like if this was in the trailer, say this was the trailer for this movie, it's Michael surrounded by these people, they've got all of their various weapons and they just start going to town on him, and you could edit it so that he actually gets up and starts cutting them back a la Malignant. It could be very exciting. And I do think it's actually effective in that specific instance. But this groaner fucking line, the fact that we think he's down and then he gets back up and he just brutally massacres everybody after we just did this in isolation with Karen like 2 minutes ago. It's just... Why? Why do we have multiple climaxes? Why are we pretending that Michael Myers is... I mean, I know he's always been superhuman, but this is taking it to such ridiculous levels. I get that it's probably enjoyable to a lot of people, but as somebody who doesn't have the same feelings for the franchise, it feels, not good.
Well, and it's also kind of like, okay, I get it, because we're walking out of here being like, well, what was the point? Like, all of this happens, and oops, sorry, he gets up and he just massacres all of them. Like, what's the point? Which, maybe that's the idea, right? Oh yeah, what is the point of mobs? What is the point of mob
They
mentality?
don't pay off.
Nothing good comes from it. Like, okay, fine. But the problem is, I'm also walking out of the movie saying, what was the point of that movie? And that's the issue here.
Yeah. I mean, if they try to take this seriously, Halloween Ends is actually going to have to do some kind of reconciling with what happened this night and how we lost a bunch of people because people went off and they got weapons instead of trusting the police or trusting somebody else. I mean, I hope we're going to see that. I have a feeling we'll probably get a 5-year memorial like what we sometimes get in a Final Destination movie. I wish that I trusted this film a little bit more to do some of that heavy lifting if it's going to try to play in deeper emotional waters. And particularly as an ending, this film doesn't give me that kind of stuff. I think this is supposed to be a culmination moment. Oh shit, the pathos, the tragedy of all these people getting cut down. I don't feel that.
No, I don't feel it either. And, this may just be a case of, you know what, this movie didn't give me what I wanted, and therefore it's not for me. I don't like it. Fine.
Yeah, maybe.
And that may be the case, and that probably is the case. But unfortunately, that means that, honestly, any expectations I have for Ends are fairly low. And I was trying to talk about this with someone, a former guest, Lindsay Travis, actually, because I think people accused her of, like, walking into the movie ready to hate it.
Right.
Because she doesn't like the first one, or 2018. And I was like, I think there's a difference between walking in ready to hate something, meaning like your knives are out, and walking in with low expectations, hoping you'll find something positive in it. And I think that, at least for me, that's how I feel I walked in. Because I did walk in with relatively low expectations, given the word of mouth, hoping that it would help me find something positive. And I mean, we've talked about a couple things we liked, but at the end of the day, like, I just didn't like this movie.
Yeah. And folks, the reason that we're starting to sound like we're wrapping up is because the movie is effectively over. All we have left is like more purple prose from Laurie and then Karen dying and then cut to credits. This movie just really didn't work for me. And I didn't go in with a lot of expectations, kind of like what you said. I didn't love the first film. I went in trying to be open-minded. I actually did really like a lot of the first act of it. Although it was pretty evident early on that we were bouncing around a lot and trying to introduce new people and catch up with old people. And also don't forget about the Strodes and setting up different locations. And it felt very haphazard and frenzied. And I don't know if we were supposed to be like, ooh, it's because the cauldron that is Haddonfield is bubbling and we're about to get this mob. Like, I think that's what they thought. But to me, it just felt very scattered and disorganized.
What was our big complaint with 2018, right? There's too many things. We have the Strodes, we have the podcasters, we have the teenagers. And so their solution was to add more subplots and more characters.
Hey, did you want more subplots and characters? Here you go.
But it feels like they thought, but we'll make the subplots mostly with legacy characters because then people won't care if the writing is shitty or underdeveloped because they already know these characters.
Yeah, exactly. You're already emotionally invested in these because we introduced them to you 40 years ago, even though we don't trust you to remember who they are.
I'm not even saying that's a problem. Like, I want these legacy characters. I like these legacy characters, but make them characters. This movie doesn't make them characters. And I'll stop beating this dead horse because I know I'm just saying variations of the same thing, but like, that's just what it is. Unfortunately, I don't see this movie like moving up my Halloween franchise ranking, but you know what? Again, I would love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave this, right? Is we are going to go into Halloween Ends. Like, we're going to see it. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I think we're going to go into it probably feeling the same way we did with this, which is low expectations, hoping to be surprised. And because it's the end of a trilogy, what we're hoping for is that some of these question marks and doubts and things that we just flat out didn't like or didn't work for us, we're hoping they're going to come full circle and they're going to be reconciled, repaired, addressed, so on. I do worry that we've got two of the same writers who have written these inconsistent texts who are still going to be involved. We're introducing two new people. I don't know. I really hope that what we get... Sorry, I'm moving into what I would like to see.
No, yeah, for sure.
I really hope that if we do kill Karen, that we get a lot of Laurie and a lot of Allison. And if Karen is not in fact dead, then I hope that we get a lot of all three of them. And I would like to see them working together. I would like the film to be centered on them. I don't need new additional bodies to be introduced. I don't need new characters or new subplots or, God forbid, new doctors or podcasters. I would like the film to actually narrow its focus, give the fans what they want, which is Laurie versus Michael.
And I would say paying off the promise of 2018, where they're doing a study of grief and trauma. Like, I honestly have yet to see that be explored fully.
Except
either
in the
one of these films. Yes. And you're right. Like the movies aren't coming in here saying, oh, we're really going to study trauma. That is the marketing. That is great. That is Jamie Lee Curtis. And you're right. I hope that we get more of that. I hope that we get Laurie and Allison together. I hope they are the focus. I don't need... we've killed all the legacy characters except for Lindsay, so what does it matter? Who else are we going to introduce? The whole town of Haddonfield's dead.
You know what? Karen's done. Bring in Lindsay. Let's have those three take on Michael. Focus it on them. Go.
And that might make sense, right? Like Lindsay becomes Laurie's surrogate daughter because her real daughter is no longer with us, right? Like sure. That's a storyline that, I wouldn't have wanted to see because I want more Judy Greer, but if that's where it goes, like, honestly, I would buy into that, right? Like, Lindsay grew up, she became friends with Nurse Marion Chambers for some reason.
Sure, as you do.
And so she's dead, Tommy's dead, Lonnie's dead. So her whole friend circle for 40 years is now dead.
She needs new bodies to go to open mic with her, and clearly Allison and Laurie are going to be those bodies.
Yeah. Honestly, I just hope they keep it simple. We don't need to complicate this story. The beauty of that original film, and sometimes I get it. Some people watch it now and they're like, "Oh, there's not really much to that." But that's what makes Halloween so good. Is
exactly
is that it is simple. Keep it simple, stupids. Like all of you, just keep it simple, and I will be there in theaters next Halloween.
There we go. Yeah, that and introduce Papa John, and we're good to go.
All right. I think, for better or worse, that is Halloween Kills. Listeners, let us know what you thought. Keep it civil in the comments. And if you want to come after us with pitchforks, I do understand. But
that's perfectly fine. Just not each other, please.
Come for us. You know what? That's fine. Come for us. Don't take it on each other. But yeah, let us know what you thought. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you want to see in Halloween Ends? And so that is the movie. And wish this were better. So we can cross out Halloween Kills.
Indeed. And cross out Horror Queer's Patreon.
Atlas Avenue. A long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.
Hello, I'm Shelby Scott, the host of Scare You to Sleep, a podcast where I tell you spooky bedtime stories full of creepy sound effects and music that is soothing yet unsettling to help immerse you into a world of horror. This is a show for those of us who have realized horror can be a strange but relaxing escape from reality. Speaking of escapes, sometimes I lead you through guided nightmares, like a guided meditation, but instead of flowery meadows, I take you on a journey through your own personal nightmare. So come get lost in the terror with me. Listen to Scare You to Sleep wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm. Sweet screams.